Vast new megacities, bigger than London or New York, are shooting up all over the country at a rate of 20 a year. But there are disturbing signs that the bubble is about to burst. Take a visit to some of these megacities and you'll find them bizarrely empty. Brand new, shiny ghost towns. Have you ever wondered what it might be like if you were the last person on Earth? Well, I'd imagine that it would be something like this. And I've got to tell you, it is a very strange and eerie feeling. Everything is here, an entire city. All the buildings, the roads, schools, hospitals, you name it. Everything that is, except the people. And looking around, there is not a soul to be seen.
It's 8:30 in the morning in Shenfu. In any other city in the world, that would be peak hour. Not here. The old saying is, build it and they will come. Well, they certainly haven't come yet.
If you build it, he will come.
You can't say just because you build it, it will work. You have to have enough demand first.
There's something quite spooky about walking around here. It's a weekend, it's the middle of the day, it's not raining, there are hundreds of apartments and yet the streets are virtually deserted. The only sounds, the rustle of the wind and the birds. It's almost as if some terrible accident has cleared all the people out.
Hey, miss! Miss, over here! Look, I wonder if you could do me a favor. It's the craziest thing, but I've looked and I haven't seen anybody around. Maybe they're all asleep or something, but... well, literally, there hasn't been a soul.
One of the strangest real estate stories you may ever see. Entire cities designed to look like Paris, Venice, London, even Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So why doesn't anybody want to live there?
The Chinese don't have to go to Paris anymore. It's come to them. This is the district of Tianjucheng.
Welcome to Tiandaoshan, China's fake Paris playground just south of Shanghai.
Replica Paris leaves a little bit to be desired. A little bit, specifically meaning humans.
And no, you're not in England. You're in Thamestown, a development near Shanghai built like an English village.
So we're in China. It's obviously a little bit surreal because it looks a lot like England. Why is that?
All over China, copycat European cities from mock London to faux Venice, sprouting up by the hundreds. This is the Thamestown, as in the River Thames of London.
I don't know this place before.
Do you like it?
Yeah.
It's like Paris, it was supposed to be a busy town, filled with residents, but they never came.
Where is everybody?
If your idea of a New York City home is small, think smaller. No, it's not a hotel room. This is a fully furnished apartment. At just 300 square feet, it's enough to make even some city dwellers feel claustrophobic. But the developers say this is the future of affordable urban living.
Small space does not necessarily have to mean a degradation in quality of life.
Christopher Bledsoe co-founded the company that designed Carmel Place. It's New York's first micro apartment building. The city made an exception to a rule that requires new apartments be at least 400 square feet, and it's proposing to change the zoning rule altogether. Advocates have been pushing for years for more affordable housing, especially for single people. According to real estate firm MNS, the average price for a Manhattan studio apartment in November was more than $2,900. A one-bedroom, more than $4,000. These micro apartment rents are between $2,600 and $3,000 a month. Affordable units based on income can go for as little as $950.
Space in a unit is just one element, one attribute that goes into defining the overall living experience.
Builders have employed some design tricks to make the small space work. A bed folds down from the wall over the couch. A clever desk expands into a dining table.
By sacrificing, say, 200 square feet in your studio, you can also get other trade-offs that work to your advantage, like housekeeping or Wi-Fi. And in this case, we're actually providing weekly visits from personal butler service.
Sacrificing space for the convenience of living in the big city. Robert Bumstead, Associated Press.
Listen, you're a kid, you're fascinated by.
Trying to just show you all a little taste of Agenda 21 in Paris. Got the same thing going on here, just smaller scale. Train station, stacked housing. This is just the start here, though. It'll get worse.
Hi, this is Karen Bracken, and I'm sitting in the Schmitz Brewery Piazza in Northern Liberties, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And what this is a huge paved piazza surrounded, encircled by 4 levels of stack and pack apartments with restaurants and businesses all below. It is your typical ideal communist city.
The goal under Agenda 21 is to get everyone in dense cities where transportation to other cities is ultimately limited to trains, and where people living in these dense cities largely do not own cars. Well, what they are doing is they are converting the transportation system and the development program such that all new development for the next 25 years must be within a half a mile of what they call transit-oriented centers. They call these priority development areas. Now, in these very compact, very dense dynamics, they intend for most of the population to be relocated in these stack and pack housing units. And with these stack and pack housing units, there'll be no capacity for automobiles. You will live in what they are calling a walkable community. In other words, you come down from your 14th floor and you walk to your job.
Or have a bicycle. They love bicycles, they want you walking, and they want to get you out of your car because your car gives you independence. And the last thing they want is independence. They want to be able to control everything you do, and so they're going to have their rapid transit system. That's what rapid transit is, or public utilities, public transportation. But as far as your freedom is soon to be simply a remembrance of things past. Go ahead.
Well, that is true. Now, what we've got to understand is that your city council, your board of supervisors, are blankly going along with this, whether you're in the Bay Area or anywhere across the United States, and that is because if you fight this system, your political career is over.
Environmental groups have effectively created a public image as organizations caring for helpless species and protecting environments. This has allowed them to implement an agenda in America that, if fully exposed, would be opposed by the majority of the people. In fact, most people supporting these organizations are not aware of their long-term objective, even though it is no secret. Take a look at the Wildlands map. It defines where environmentalists want to take America in the very near future. The areas in red will be off-limits to humans. The areas in yellow represent buffer zones, where limited use is allowed primarily to travel to and from populated areas. The areas in green are where normal use by humans will be allowed. However, by the environmentalists' own admission, these normal use areas would be restricted. When this plan was first published in 1992, The author, Reed Noss, explained how their agenda would affect the human population. He stated, eventually a wilderness network would dominate a region and thus would itself constitute the matrix, with human habitations being the islands. No one, not even the longtime opponents of the environmental movement, believed such a transforming agenda was possible. However, it is being implemented quickly through innocent-sounding programs that most Americans support. Wilderness areas, critical habitat for endangered species, wetlands, roadless areas, national heritage areas, and other restrictive programs are sold to the public as necessary to protect nature, or as assurance that Americans will always have a place to escape from the heavily populated cities. More inventive tools and programs, such as conservation easements, smart growth, open space, and greenlining, are being promoted as a way to control growth. What all these programs have in common is extinguishing the private property rights of American citizens and transferring the control of the property to elite land trusts or directly to the government. The environmental movement would not be able to implement their agenda without the cooperation of our government at all levels, including state and federal officials and even county commissioners. To help facilitate the environmental goals, the Clinton administration quietly created the Gap Analysis Program, or GAP for short. GAP divides the land into ecosystem regions and identifies the properties not yet under the control of state and federal governments. In other words, private property. These private holdings are then targeted for preservation by government agencies and land trusts through conservation easements, purchase, and condemnation. Although the GAP program has not been completed in all states, the data from this project is already being strategically used to target landowners. Not surprisingly, the areas of protection defined by GAP follow closely along the same boundaries as those shown on the wildlands map. It is frightening to see how much of America's land has recently been consumed as a result of this agenda. For instance, the state of Florida utilized the data from GAP to implement an aggressive preservation plan called Florida Forever. Since the early 1990s, over 2 million acres in the state of Florida have been locked up through this program. The private property owners within the target area were forced to give up their land under the pressure of extreme environmental regulations, purchase, and outright condemnation. And the Florida Forever campaign is not complete. At the current rate that environmentalists are implementing their agenda in every state, in every county, and soon in every town, private property is quickly being eliminated. It will not take the 80 to 100 years they originally projected to complete their task. They are much closer to achieving their goal than anyone realizes. 6% of America's land mass is currently developed. Only 3% of America is classified as urban. Yet 77% of all Americans live in these urban areas. The rest is still largely untouched by humans. The problem is not that our nation is being overdeveloped. The problem is as old as time. It is about who will own the land. Large amounts of the nation's natural resources are still owned by private citizens. America's founders vehemently opposed the concept of government or elitists owning the land in America, which would result in the citizens being leaseholders and serfs. One of the most well-known property rights advocates of our time, Wayne Hage, said it best. Either you have the right to own property, or you are property. Make no mistake, this battle is not about whether the land will be used, resources extracted, and wealth created, but by whom. Karl Marx wrote in the Communist Manifesto, "The theory of the communist may be summed up in the single sentence, abolition of private property." America's founding father, John Adams, stated, "Property must be secured or liberty cannot exist." Which course will America take? Hear directly from Dr. Michael Kaufman, the man who first uncovered the wildlands map and presented it to the U.S. Senate. Kaufman will reveal the details of the environmental agenda and how the government is helping to transfer land ownership in America. He explores each region and explains the tactics they are using in the different areas. You will learn what might be used to target your land. Environmentalists are counting on their agenda never being fully revealed. Taking Liberty is committed to seeing that it is. Their plan must be stopped before all of our liberty is taken.
Now, to get an NGO accreditation, you have to go to the United Nations. And the price of getting an NGO designation is that you have to become an implementer of Agenda 21 policy.
I saw this in the World Economic Forum, and I had to talk about it because it's such a clear indicator of the drastic shift in society, not that we're facing in the future and generally down the road, but that is actually happening right now. It's actually taking place. And if you like your doctor and want to keep him, you're going to love this. So this was on wefforum.org. That's the Davos site, Davos Elite. And it was written by Ida Auken, a member of parliament in Denmark. And I checked, and as far as I could find, she hasn't been to Bilderberg or anything like that. But again, she's a member of the Davos Elite.
We are 7 billion people now on the planet. We're going up to 9 billion. Think about 3 billion people entering the middle class, all wanting cars, mobile phones, computers, eating meat. I mean, this is a huge pressure on the resources we have.
But she appears to be very much what I assume would be a Bernie Sanders style socialist. But she's also hoping that people in the near future will own nothing. That's their big answer to income inequality. They've been talking about it at these conferences for years. They've been talking about universal income, what to do when people can't work. And their answer is people of the future will own nothing. The Davos Elite, preparing for their annual confab next month, have acknowledged the growing problem of the underman who's threatened by the rising cost of living, discouraged by the lack of better paying opportunities overall, and all the other factors that go into living in the society that we've been in. And the answer of the 1%, and those even fewer who could be counted among the billionaires of the planet who own more than anyone else listed in the phone book, and their answer is that we should own nothing at all. And we talked a lot about the smart city, how much that's being used for control, but this goes beyond anything. It's straight into Marxist serfdom, actually without the problem of work and without the problem of the working man's struggle. So it's neo-feudalism, but with a new twist. Here's how it goes. Here's what Ida Auken wrote in her column for Davos. Welcome to the year 2030. Welcome to my city, or should I say, our city. I don't own anything. I don't own a car. I don't own a house. I don't own any appliances or any clothes. I sound like I'm from a Dr. Seuss novel. It might seem odd to you, but it makes perfect sense for us in this city. Everything you considered a product has now become a service. We have access to transportation, accommodation, food, and all the things we need in our daily lives. One by one, these things became free, so it ended up not making sense for us to own much anymore.
Why do you want to own your cell phone? I mean, you want the function, you want the service, right? Why do you want to own a cell phone if you can just lease it? And if you lease, why shouldn't you lease your refrigerator or your washing machine or your dishwasher, or why do you want to own it? I mean, it's not like the plastic in the middle. It's like, I own a broke dishwasher. I mean, wow.
People don't own cars anymore. There's driverless vehicles and flying cars for longer journeys. I think we've had that one promised before.
So why don't you want to go into a business model where the company owns it?
Ida Auken writes that in 2030 in our city, we don't pay any rent because someone else is using our free space whenever we don't need it. Someone else is sleeping in your living room when you're not around, or cooking in your kitchen when you're done making dinner. She writes, my living room is being used for business meetings when I'm not there, and once in a while I will choose to cook for myself. It's easy. Even the necessary kitchen equipment isn't owned. It's delivered to the door by drones within minutes. Environmental problems seem so far away, she says, because of course it can never really be that far away from Agenda 21. She writes, the air is clean, the water's clean, and nobody would dare touch the protected areas of nature because they constitute such value to our well-being. No one is allowed to go into the wilderness. But in the cities, there's plenty of green space and plants and trees all over. She says that even shopping has changed. You don't really shop anymore. It's more of a choosing of things just to use and to borrow. And that she used to find it fun to actually pick things out for herself, But over time, she found the algorithm did it for her better and knows her own taste better than she does. And there's a flashback, of course, when AI and robots took over so much of our work. We suddenly had time to eat, to sleep well, to spend time with people. And instead of working, there was thinking time, creative time, and development time. But for a time, everything was just entertainment. She laments those who lost their way, who decided it was too much, all this technology, those who felt obsolete and useless when robots and AI took over. It sounds like Davos watched our film, which, by the way, you can watch on Amazon Prime, and now they're writing about it, and now it's really happening in the world that we live in. They say that people who got upset with the political system moved out, and they live in basically 19th century villages with old technology, and basically they're not valued in society, but neither is anyone else. So that's the future society, but you don't own anything. And
do you know how much a car drives? How much of its life? 4%. Or if you take a drill, it's used 15 minutes. It's not a lot, is it? And most of us, I know there are some guys here that really love to own a drill. But for the rest of us, we just want a hole in a wall, right? And I think we're going to a place where we just want mobility, where we don't care so much about owning a car. It's actually a little bit of trouble. If you just come to driverless car and pick me up and I can drive around and this car will be driving all the time.
Things could be taken away at a whim, but even this parliament member from Davos writes about the pitfalls. Once in a while, she writes, I get annoyed about the fact that I have no real privacy. Nowhere can I go and not be registered. I know that. I know somewhere everything I do, think, and dream of is recorded. I hope that no one will use it against me. But she still insists that this is a way better society because in the old society, terrible things were happening. There were lifestyle diseases from couch potatoes, and there was pollution and waste and climate change and congested cities and social unrest and unemployment and everything else that's part of life. So she says that's why the world of 2030 would be so much better if we owned nothing and we were basically peons who don't even have to do work and really just have to hang out. Well, it sounds really cool for a feature-length film or a theme park ride. And you're all like, yeah, wow, cool, man, I want my turn. That sounds pretty good. But after you go around the block once or twice, you think, I've seen this movie. It's 2001.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
It's Logan's Run, The Wizard of Oz, it's Rollerball, it's The Hunger Games, Gattaca 1984, Brave New World, Divergent, Soylent Green, etc. I've seen that movie. I've actually seen all those movies. And you realize one fatal flaw. What happens if they don't like what I say? And what happens if I don't like or believe in what they do anymore? What about my rights, man? There's no guarantee of freedom or absolute respect of rights, and you're just another basically head of cattle in the global management system, the biodiversity system, of which you count very little in the overall schemes. And you don't even have privacy in your own head when you sleep at night. There is no guarantee of freedom or absolute respect of rights at all, including privacy, and everything shifts according to what is already acceptable and what certain people wish to make acceptable. And it's always between those lines, and your rights mean nothing because your dreams were so unlimited that you'd fall for anything. We all love our stuff, and free stuff is better. We take the ride and grumble as quietly as possible about the drawbacks and the back-end shafting and raw deals that are constantly offered up. The theme park ride would become torture rather than entertainment if you were never allowed off of it. And basically, I think once reality kicked in, it might not be the best system. Because in this future system which they're building, they're shifting people into it, and the internet's a huge part of it, there is no guarantee of freedom. They will censor you, they will shut down your channel, they will deauthorize your account, your bank card will not work.
First of all, we all know these smart cities of the future will be highly technologically controlled grids where everything, including you, will be tracked and traced everywhere you go. Some people chuckle when you bring up Mark of the Beast, but there will be some kind of chip or digital tattoo or some kind of thing that will be required for you to move about in this city, to travel, to engage in commerce, and just think about it. Right now we've already been upgraded to a chip system in our credit cards where we're getting used to seeing a chip every time we pay for something. Just follow that out to its logical conclusion. Davos, Bilderberg, George Soros, United Nations, all these other elites and foundations are really pursuing universal basic income, which essentially makes the government your boss and leaves you completely dependent on it for everything. And it's no joke to say that in a society like that, if you don't follow the rules, they can turn your access off like Sandra Bullock's life in the movie The Net. And those rules, by the way, might start out at an acceptable point that seems reasonable, but just consider all of the constraints they can put on you and yours and how you live your life in the interest of the public good in our collective city of 2030. Mandatory vaccinations, for example, and medical treatments. Your health, including mental, will be considered community property in a place like this. For two, the entire city will obviously be a gun-free zone. Or, maybe they decide nobody's gonna eat red meat anymore except once a year on your birthday. The United Nations came out and said that red meat's bad for you, so maybe they'll just make sure no one can even have that. You just don't even get access to it. Really, basically just any rule they decide to make, if you're in this system and economically dependent upon it, you're giving yourself up to the whims of the collective. Maybe they outlaw homeschool. Or maybe they force everyone to get up and exercise at 8 a.m. every morning because it's good for you and because obesity is now considered a disease. And think about it, with Obamacare, they've already got everyone paying an individual shared responsibility payment if you don't buy their health insurance. There's no limit to the number of things that they will be able to control in a society where the majority of everyone owns nothing and is completely dependent on the government for everything that they do get. So how much more of a leap is it to say these kinds of things, right? Maybe they, mandate some sort of antidepressant in the water, for the good of society, keep everyone real happy and chilled out. Sounds loony. It sounds like Brave New World. Well, so did the suggestion of the future these people are creating right now once upon a time. But they're talking about it like this is a real possibility that they're actually working towards. If you think about it, the younger generations have been socially engineered to live in this society. To not say anything that's going to offend someone else because they might get triggered, and everyone should have a safe space. These kids have been engineered not to buy houses, not to buy cars, not to get married, not to have families, and really not to be able to find their way out of a paper bag without Googling it first. They have become totally dependent on the internet and computers for the majority of their existence. Back when we were kids, for example, we couldn't wait to turn 16 and get our driver's license because that meant freedom. But larger and larger portions of millennials are still living with their parents at age 30 now. They don't even know what freedom is anymore. They don't even have the same concept of freedom or privacy. Privacy doesn't even exist for these kids. They have always lived their lives sharing everything about themselves on the computer, filming themselves all the time and being filmed all the time, and that's just normal to them. So the privacy concept is being quashed anyway. This is why Bilderberg asked a couple years back, does privacy exist? It was a rhetorical question because they know that privacy has already been extinct for a while. And these millennials have been engineered for this exact smart grid city, where everything, right down to the trash can, will have sensors in it so the proper authorities can be alerted in real time if you don't recycle properly for the good of the planet. We've already shown you guys before in reports about the smart city. Everything in your house will be connected to the internet. It will be sending out signals in real time, data about everything you're doing in your house, what you're eating, how much energy you're using, water, just pretty much everything, so that it can be tracked and monitored and they can make sure you stay within your quota. And if you turn up the air conditioning a little too high in the summer, they'll make sure and turn it down for you. You'll really have no control over your life at all. You will be part of this collective system. And the society these people are pushing us towards is a dystopic nightmare that's already happening in slow motion. You won't even be able to sleep at night in your own bed because it won't be your bed and have privacy in your own brain. So I guess count me as one of those poor saps that became obsolete and is living out in the wild like a crazy person in a tree or whatever. That's fine. Like how I'm gonna live in this crazy ass society that they're suggesting. I can't even fathom it. It sounds insane.
Car share for a long time was a problem because people left stuff in the cars and it was a little bit disgusting. But now, you know, you rate people, so you don't leave stuff in the car, you just behave better. So the information technology has made it much more easy to share things.
And again, we talked about all this stuff, all these themes come up in our film Obsolete, which we're just trying to talk about this stuff. The end of the need to work for a living and the institution of the universal basic income concept. It sounds good and it makes sense in many regards. It sounds like a better system, but it is fundamentally flawed and therefore doomed. Can somebody pass me a roll of toilet?
You can look at these ancient hills and see nothing. Or you can see nothing to hold you back. No set ways of thinking, no restrictions, no divisions, no excuses. Just endless potential. This is the blank page you need to write humanity's next chapter. NEOM. Over 25,000 square kilometers of inspiration, with room for your biggest ideas. A part of the world set aside for those who want to change the world. A land created to free people from stress. A place where pioneers and thinkers and doers can exchange ideas and get things done. A startup the size of a country that will change the way we live and work forever. Healthier, happier, with more time for the things that really matter. A truly global culture from every place and background you can imagine that can show the rest of the planet how it's done. With energy that flows from the sun and wind, neighborhoods that can feed and clean themselves, technologies that make life everything it can be. This is where we can prepare together for the next era of human progress. Some will look at these ancient hills and see nothing. But the rest of the world will know that this is where a new way of living began. Discover NEOM.
Hi folks, this is Tony for the A Minute to Midnight show. I've got a video here today for you which I think has some important information. In fact, I was quite mind blown, had my eyes opened by some of what I discovered while researching for this. Revelation 13 and verse 2 tells us that the dragon gives his power, his seat and his great authority to the beast. It also tells us in verse 4 that they worshipped the dragon who gave power to the beast. And in verse 15, he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. The technology is in existence today, such as artificial intelligence, robotics and other things, to create the image of the beast and give it life. And there is a smart city that is being developed today, which I think may be the largest undertaking since the Tower of Babel in the history of the world, and that is what I want to show you today. That city is called NEOM, and it is in Saudi Arabia. Now let's take a look at this futuristic city called Neom, which I think is about as New World Order as it gets. In fact, it could end up being potentially the centre of the New World Order, where we can live the future as we create the future, unrivaled in concept, unmatched in intelligence, unconstrained by history, and built on humanity's greatest resource, imagination. Neom is a new kind of tomorrow in the making, a place on Earth like nothing on Earth, a new blueprint for sustainable life on a scale never seen before, where inventiveness shapes a new, inspiring era for human civilization. Neom will operate as an independent economic zone with its own laws, taxes and regulations specially created to boost healthy growth and wealth for the region, investors and residents.
With energy that flows from the sun and wind, neighborhoods that can feed and clean themselves, technologies that make life everything it can be. This is where we can prepare together for the next era of human progress.
Klaus Kleinfeld, the former chairman and chief executive officer of Siemens AG and Alcoa Incorporated, was appointed to lead the development of Neom. And this is set to be huge, folks. The special zone will be established in the northwestern region of Saudi Arabia and is set to include territory from within the Egyptian and Jordanian borders and to comprise a total area of 26,500 kilometres. And phase 1 of this is due to be completed in 2025. And this place is set to be basically swimming with robots and artificial intelligence. I want to read you something here. It says, we want the main robot and the first robot in Neom to be Neom Robot Number 1, the Crown Prince said in an interview in a palatial setting next to the Ritz-Carlton in Riyadh. Everything will have a link with artificial intelligence, with the Internet of Things. Everything. The Saudi Vision 2030 is underpinned by the creation of the world's largest sovereign wealth fund, an estimated $2 trillion pot of assets that will drive investment and create jobs. The fund has already committed $20 billion to an infrastructure investment fund with Blackstone Group LP and as much as $45 billion for a technology fund run by SoftBank. And by the way, folks, the chairman of the Blackstone Group is Stephen Schwarzman, who is a longtime friend of President Donald Trump, and in fact, he chaired President Donald Trump's Strategic and Foreign Policy Forum.
Over 25,000 square kilometers of inspiration, with room for your biggest ideas. A part of the world set aside for those who want to change the world. A land created to free people from stress. A place where pioneers and thinkers and doers can exchange ideas and get things done. A startup the size of a country that will change the way we live and work forever. Healthier, happier, with more time for the things that really matter. A truly global culture from every place and background you can imagine that can show the rest of the planet how it's done.
Our friend Mike from On Point Preparedness made a short video which is excellent a few weeks ago. I'm going to play just a small section of it and I'm sure Mike won't mind, and you will see why I think this is significant in relationship to Neom and also to the whole agendas of the New World Order.
Even the two-finger salute, the sign of benediction, which is uniquely Catholic. I've talked about this in other videos, but I've found some additional information from a friend in one of my Facebook groups. This actually dates back to the Babylonian, Assyrian, and Egyptians. Serapis, or Jupiter Serapis, the Egyptian divinity whose bust is placed upon the mons Javus of the hand, was chiefly worshipped at Alexandria. So again, not only does it relate to the Baphomet statue, but it also relates to ancient Egypt, and this is, like I said before, uniquely Catholic. It's all over their idols and their sculptures and their paintings.
That painting is a Salvator Mundi or Mundi by Leonardo da Vinci from about 1500, and it shows Jesus in a Renaissance dress giving a benediction with his right hand with those two fingers extended, like Mike pointed out, is also found on that Baphomet statue, and is also in his left hand holding a transparent rock crystal orb. Now I'm going to show you some very interesting correlations between the Salvator Mundi and
Neom.
In the trailer video on discoverneom.com you can see an orb with a upside down city in it, and so there you have it. And also don't forget the glowing orb that Donald Trump placed his hands on along with Al Sisi and the King of Saudi Arabia in 2017. Okay, now going back to the painting, the Salvator Mundi. It was sold at auction by Christie's in New York to Prince Badr bin Abdullah bin Mohammed Al Fahd on behalf of the Abu Dhabi Department of Culture and Tourism on November 15, 2017 for $450.3 million, setting a new record for the most expensive painting ever sold. The painting is to be on display at the Louvre in Abu Dhabi. Okay, now this gets interesting. The prince who supposedly bought the painting on behalf of the Abu Dhabi Department of Culture and Tourism is actually the chairman of Saudi Research and Marketing Group. And according to the Wall Street Journal, Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was identified as the buyer of the record-breaking Da Vinci painting. US government intelligence and a Middle East artwork figure familiar with the purchase says Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman used a proxy to purchase the 500-year-old Salvator Mundi. Now I find it extremely interesting that a Muslim prince would spend $450 million to buy a Catholic painting with a rendition of Jesus giving the Catholic benediction and holding an orb in his left hand. Additionally, in light of the fact that I've just shown you that the Baphomet symbol is basically using that same benediction hand sign, now take a look again at the logo for Neom. At first you may not see it, but then it actually becomes obvious when you know what you're looking at that it is, hiding in plain sight, a symbol for Baphomet. Neom is absolutely a globalist's dream, a smart city designed by globalists for globalists. And the chief executive for Neom is Klaus Kleinfeld, who is a member of the Bilderberg Steering Committee, as well as being on the World Economic Forum, and he is a lifetime member of the Council on Foreign Relations. These are all organizations designed to bring about global government and a new world order.
We've had a huge amount of interest and are talking to a lot of companies that are on the forefront of multiple technologies, wanting to partner and wanting to try out things in Neom. What speaks for Neom? I mean, one thing is a beautiful location. It's just wonderful. I was just there last week. We invited the top livability experts from around the world to spend some time in Neom with us to talk about future of livability. And I tell you what, it is as though you come to a place where the mind is at peace. At the same time, you know, we are creating a place where prosperity can be gained through creating a new future there. So on the technological side, a lot of people look at it and say we can try certain things out, and we can try it out without being held back by existing infrastructure, plus being allowed new types of legislation. So we have full legislative authority, and we've been asked by His Royal Highness the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, write this legislation in the most investor-friendly way and in the most future-oriented way, and this is what's currently happening.
A number of large companies and countries are already looking to be involved in Neom, including the SoftBank Group, which is in Japan and are one of the largest companies in the world and the fourth largest publicly traded company in Japan.
This is fantastic opportunity. As Crown Prince says, because of the leadership, because of the location, because of the people in the kingdom, we can make it happen.
Also, the Russians are looking to get involved in it, calling it perhaps the most ambitious infrastructure project in the history of mankind. This definitely conjures up images of Nimrod and the Tower of Babel in my mind. Saudi Arabia and Egypt set up a $10 billion joint fund in March as well. Discussions are also underway between Saudi Arabia and Jordan as to Jordan's role in NEOM. Bin Salman reportedly arranged a series of meetings between top Saudi officials and Israeli counterparts as well as members of the Egyptian government, according to the Emirati newspaper Khaleej Times. And officially it was to discuss NEOM, but also no doubt to talk about the Palestinian peace plan. And however, the fact is that NEOM will feature a bridge across the Gulf of Aqaba, as well as hydro-agriculture projects, and this is where Israel comes into the picture, according to the Israeli national news. Klaus Kleinfeld has revealed that a number of construction projects are already underway and likely to be completed by the end of summer of 2018. Saudi Arabia's megacity will most likely allow only electric vehicles to operate within its confines, according to Klaus Kleinfeld. Kleinfeld is also exploring the possibility of how quickly they can bring passenger drones in, and as well as how the city can encourage pedestrian traffic. Palaces for the King, the Crown Prince and other senior royals are among the first contracts that have been awarded for NEOM. As I mentioned earlier, Bin Salman had said they want the main robot and the first robot in NEOM to be NEOM itself. Also, they want everything there to be connected so no one can live in NEOM without the NEOM application that they will be given. According to Bin Salman, everything will have a link to artificial intelligence, to the Internet of Things, everything. Your medical file will be connected with your home supply, with your car, linked to your family, linked to your other files, and the system develops itself in how to provide you with better things. Today, all the clouds available are separate, the car is by itself, the Apple Watch is by itself, everything is by itself. There, everything will be connected. Considering that Saudi Arabia has Sophia, the world's first robot citizen, and Bin Salman's desire to connect everything with artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things, I can see the potential for NEOM to be the New World Order capital, and possibly even Mystery Babylon itself. Folks, I believe that the uniting of all religions into one big global religion will be one of the hallmarks of the end-time Babylonian system. We see Pope Francis hard at work in the ingathering of everyone towards one religion, so we would expect to see something along those lines, wouldn't we, if NEOM had a part to play in the Babylonian system of the end times. Well, I just want to show you here how much Mohammed bin Salman is playing such a role.
We only want to go back to what we were, the moderate Islam that is open to the world, open to all the religions.
–
70% of the Saudi people are less than 30 years old. And quite frankly, we will not waste 30 years of our lives in dealing with extremist ideas. We will destroy them today. We want to live a normal life, a life that translates our moderate religion, our good customs. We coexist and live with the world and contribute to the development of our country and the world. This is something that there are steps that we have taken in the past that are clear. I believe that we will eradicate the rest of extremism very soon. So I don't think this is a real challenge, because we represent the moderate teachings and principles of Islam, and we have the right. The right is on our side and everything that we deal with. So I don't think that we are concerned.
Thank you, Your Highness.
Mohammed bin Salman started off his UK trip with a visit to the Queen, who hosted the young prince at Buckingham Palace, a sign of just how eager the UK is to bolster its ties with the Saudi kingdom.
Your Royal Highness, very good to meet you indeed. Thank you so much for taking the trouble. Your Excellency.
The Queen is the official head of the Church of England. Mohammed bin Salman met the Queen, met Theresa May, British Prime Minister, and also the Archbishop of Canterbury, who is the head under the Queen of the Anglican Church, and a whole lot of other Anglican officials. The Crown Prince also met in Cairo with the Coptic Pope, the head of the Coptic Church in Egypt recently. While on a 3-week tour of the US, the Crown Prince also met with 2 Roman Catholic and 3 Jewish figures. The meeting emphasized the common bond among all people, particularly people of faith, which stresses the importance of tolerance, coexistence, and working together for a better future of all humanity, the embassy said. Although Prince Mohammed had recently met Christian figures, it marks the first time he's announced a meeting with our Jewish religious leader. Prince Mohammed's meeting included Rabbi Richard Jacobs, President of the Union for Reform Judaism, Rabbi Stephen Wernick, head of the United Synagogue of Conservative Judaism, and Alan Fagan, Executive Vice President of the Orthodox Union, the embassy said. Now, it's not only Mohammed bin Salman that's been at work doing this, but also the king, his father. Saudi Arabia's King Salman met with the chairman of the Pontifical Council for Interfaith Dialogue at the Vatican, Cardinal Jean-Louis Touran, and his accompanying delegation. During the meeting, they stressed the important role of followers of religions and cultures in renouncing violence, extremism, terrorism, and achieving worldwide security and stability. Sounds like great New World Order goals, doesn't it? Touran was hosted by Riyadh-based Global Centre for Combating Extremist Ideology, or ETIDAL, which showed its work in combating extremist ideology. ETIDAL, Arabic for moderation, is an effort by the international community to expose, combat and refute extremist ideology. The centre was established in 2017 and located in Riyadh, the cooperative effort of more than 55 countries. The centre operates mainly around 3 pivots: ideology, technology and media. And it uses these to disrupt extremist recruitment and promote tolerance and coexistence among different religions and cultures. ETIDAL has designed machine learning systems and algorithms to detect violent and extremist online content. We analyse this content and then anticipate how extremist groups use this content to recruit vulnerable audiences. To counter these efforts, we devise strategic programs and projects that encourage tolerance and moderation. Following the visit, Cardinal Touran commented, "It's important to see that ETIDAL has a mission and a vision. The centre is very wise to analyse the causes of extremism. Most of the time, extremism is provoked by injustice." Yeah, that sounds like an excellent advertisement for Pope Francis. That's what he would say, wouldn't he? Touran is seen as an energetic promoter of dialogue between the Roman Catholic Church and Islam. Surprise, surprise. Now back to the glowing orb and Donald Trump. The reason he was there putting his hands on that orb was because he was there at the inaugural opening of the Global Centre for Combating Extremist Ideology on the 21st of May 2017. And the Saudis were given basically NSA type powers to spy on people on the internet.
We've become very good friends over a fairly short period of time. I was in Saudi Arabia in May.
Also, bin Salman visited the White House recently, and Saudi Arabia has negotiated with the US a massive deal to have arms and military equipment supplied to Saudi Arabia in the next few years.
We're getting a $700 billion military proposal, and that's even a lot for you guys. So it's a great honor to have you and your representatives here. Crown Prince, thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, the relation between Saudi Arabia and the rest of America, it's an old relation. We are the oldest ally of the rest of America and the Middle East.
Right.
And more opportunities, and that's why we are here today, to be sure that we've tackled all the opportunities and achieve it, and also get rid of all the threats facing our both countries and the whole world. So I'm very glad to be here today.
Well, that's right. And you know, one thing that you have been really focused on is the terrorism threat and the funding of terrorism. And whether it's Saudi Arabia or other countries, as we know, there will be no funding. We have a zero tolerance for the funding of terrorists. And we're working very hard. And I will say that Saudi Arabia has been working very hard on that, as are certain other countries in the Middle East. When I was there in May, I think it was one of the most incredible two-day meetings that I've ever seen, that anybody's ever seen. It was an amazing two-day period. We had 56 countries. We had, everybody was there, the head of every country. Virtually, I guess, in every case, it was the head of the country. And we talked about terrorism and the funding of terrorism, and it will not be allowed. It will not be allowed. That would be the one thing that would end the relationship with any country.
According to a very interesting article in the New Yorker, shortly after the inauguration of Trump, it was Jared Kushner who began advocating a new outreach to Saudi Arabia. And in his plan, Trump would visit Riyadh for a summit of 55 Muslim-majority countries. And Jared was the engine for all this, a former defense official said. As Kushner grappled with the complexities of Middle East politics, he and Mohammed bin Salman began a conversation by telephone and email. They became very close fast, a former American official who sees Mohammed bin Salman periodically said. They see the world in the same way. They see themselves as being in the tech-savvy money world. Kushner followed up with a visit to Riyadh, the first of 3 such trips. The two men stayed up nearly until dawn discussing the future of their countries, according to this article in the New Yorker from the 9th of April. MBS gives the impression of being comfortable with Western Moors. In meetings with American women, he shakes their hands and looks them in the eye, which not every Saudi official will do. He has a lot of charisma. He's a lot like Bill Clinton. He makes you feel like you're super important when you're talking to him. He really puts on a charm that is unmistakable, continues that article. Bin Salman devised a plan called Vision 2030 for a vast transformation of the Saudi economy. And he basically visited China, Russia, the US, where he met with an array of tech executives, including Mark Zuckerberg. At a gathering of prominent venture capitalists in Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco, MBS spoke bluntly about Saudi Arabia's prospects. According to one attendee, he said, "In 20 years, oil goes to zero and then renewables take over. I have 20 years to reorient my country and launch it into the future." Revelation 17:18 says, "And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth." Now, I'm not saying that Neom is it, but I think it deserves close watching, and put that in your basket of possibilities. Don't discount it. And don't discount Jared Kushner and the Pope, of course, and also Mohammed bin Salman as big players in the end times. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to like it, and also visit aminutetomidnight.com and we run A Minute to Midnight entirely by donations, and we'd really appreciate your help. If you can help us out with donations, that'd be awesome. Cheers, we'll catch you again soon.
A road diverges in the desert. Lexus. The road you're on, John Anderton, is the one less traveled. Make sure you follow on
Good evening, John. You can move the old-fashioned John Anderton. Every 21 stands provides gourmet cuisine. John Anderton, you can use a Guinness right about now. Stressed out, John Anderton?
This week, done it all, Harrison. Get away, John Anderton. Forget your troubles.
John Anderton.